brother, today has been fruitful. My last meeting was with like a senior exec at Key Bank, and it sounds like they want to give our clients some money. So we love that.
Right.
They're sitting on a bunch of funds, and they're like, someone told me I should talk to you because you actually do business, and that made me laugh. We've been saying that for a little bit now, and it's starting to become our calling card. We really do this.
Right. I literally referenced that a little earlier, this veteran group that I'm looking at joining. When it comes to relationship building, whenever people ask me if I miss wearing a uniform, it's always a quick and resounding, not just no, but hell no, I don't miss it at all. But the one thing that I do miss are the relationships. The way that military relationships are formed from within, where I have lifelong relationships with people that I otherwise would have never even spoken to had it not been for us serving in the military together. Well, I haven't felt that sense of camaraderie until being in this space of working with true business movers and shakers. When you're actually doing business instead of talking about business, it's a different kind of movement, how you move throughout.
Yeah, it's a different energy.
To be surrounded by folks that have that same, because my clients, I see what their businesses are producing. So it's one thing, again, to talk about business, and it's another to actually conduct it.
Yeah, brother. What you're saying, it's so true. It's a different energy. And when I was really first starting in business around 2008, I'm out there projecting a little bit because I don't really have the posture, I don't have the confidence, and I don't have the experience. But you know what I did have? I was broke, and I didn't want to be broke anymore. So I had a whole lot of get off my assness going on. And I'll never forget, maybe like 2 or 3 months in, I talked to this guy, and he's like, the way you laid out everything to me makes sense logically. He's like, and I can see that you're hungry in your eyes. He's like, but you don't quite have the swagger yet. So come back when you're ready. And I didn't really understand. It's like, if I gave him the facts and he liked it, and then circle back many, many years later, and I'm in a completely different space. I run across the same guy, and I just kind of pitched him what I was doing. And he's like, oh, well, when can we sit down and do this? And it was funny. The first time I approached this gentleman, I was in a 3-piece suit, and I was really trying to look the part. The second time I saw him, man, I was in like a Corona shirt with cheese on it. Like, I was not looking the best, but the way that I delivered that energy to him was just like, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is how I help people. If you're a competent person, this is something you're going to want. Or not. Either way, it's good to see you. And, both of us have that energy about us. We are not begging for business.
It's almost like a rebellious spirit that I have to how I approach business, because the barrier to entry to wear the title of business consultant or business coach is very low.
Yes.
But one thing that is kind of universally applied is you expect them to be in a suit. I was expected to be in a suit when I worked for the firm that I work for. When I walked into those rooms, it didn't matter what I was wearing. It mattered what I brought. When Kanye said, I know they don't want me in the damn club, they even made me show ID to get inside the Sam's Club. There have been a lot of rooms that they didn't want me in, and I was required to walk in with a suit and present and play the part while I was learning the game, because during those times, I didn't really know the game. So during those times, I wore the uniform and I played the part. But as I was playing the part, there was always intention behind it, because I knew what I was planning to do. So and plus, I enjoy being in a suit anyway. Like my tailored, I'm real. You'll see when you see me in a real suit, like you know, like it's I enjoy that anyway. But when you expect for me to wear a suit, then I gotta what I was getting ready to say, I ain't gonna say. But
No, I love the spirit, and it reminds me a lot of, like, E.T. the hip hop preacher and his team. I was talking to those guys at a conference, and they were telling me, uh, essentially, when he was first starting to get booked for gigs, when Secede, as bad as you want to breathe, was blowing up, he's showing up to corporate gigs, and he has to fit it on. He's got the sweats, and he's ready to do work. He's got his J's on. Sometimes, even though he's from Detroit, so he hates Jordan, but he appreciates greatness. Detroit through and through, and he got this big gig for, I guess it was big at the time. It was $20,000. Walks in, and they're like, "Oh, that won't do. We are a 1,000 leading company. You got to have a suit on." It's like, no, we're not doing that. Would not compromise the brand. Fast forward 2 years later, these same guys pay him $75,000, and it's the same gal I'm talking to, and she's like, I was getting ready to tell them he's going to be in a fitted and sweats. They're like, no, that's how the guys want him, the way he is in the videos, fitted, sweats, some J's. Like, please tell him to wear that. And it makes me laugh. Some people are much more so caught up on what they think success looks like versus what it really is. Like, if people follow me for a whole day, it is extremely unglamorous. When I got to get up at 4:30 in the morning, and I'm dragging, get to the gym. I'm listening to my audio on the way to the gym. I'm listening to a different audio on the way back, reading, calling clients, going through emails. None of that is glamorous. Meeting up with someone who, there's a good chance it could be an absolute bust meeting up with this person, or they're going to reschedule the last second. But it could be that one person I've been waiting my whole life to meet. And everything goes vertical from that moment. So until that moment happens, I'm acting like the next moment is that moment. And that's where all the excitement is. But better than most, the excitement is not in the work. The work is the work.
Right. The wild part for me, though, is it honestly isn't work for me. I was telling my baby girl, I've positioned myself in a space where working in my business is working on my business, because what I do is the same across the board. Example, I shared a couple weeks back that my virtual assistant started getting that process flowing. I'm like, man, we got to be able to measure the productivity of all of these tasks that are being executed. It's nothing for me to throw together a quick spreadsheet that what he does is he enters the time that he starts the task, the time that he finishes the task, and everything else is drop-down menus. When he makes the selection, it calculates everything off to the side. So how much time is being spent on each task that he accomplishes in the course of a day. That's the same thing that I would bring to my client. It's the same thing that I'm going to bring to my business. It's the same things that I enjoy doing. So again, if I'm working in my business in the form of doing something for my client, that is, in fact, building my business, because everything that I learn from all of my clients goes into the full framework that I deliver to all of my clients.
Yeah, we're in a weird meta space where, because we help people enhance their businesses by doing our work, which is in the business, we're also working on the business. Whereas, someone with a more traditional business, that's not the case. You know, when you're running a logistics business, you sending out packages and receiving freight, very, very different than sitting down looking at the metrics of what your employees are doing
No,
and how they're
100%.
doing it and the net effect of what comes from that.
100%.
Y'all like that? I was trying to sound like JB there. I was trying to sound like I'll make these people make moves.
Nah, but it's an interesting thing because the virtual assistant by virtue, when you look at the hourly rate for someone in America versus the hourly rate for someone in the Philippines, is two different. And then to not have the payroll taxes and the workers' comp and none of the other things that comes along with having employees, it's already a win to have a virtual assistant.
I think
When
it's
you
phenomenal that you're creating all this leverage because it's like, what is it to talk about it versus actually doing it?
Yeah. And that's the piece, because as I'm doing it, again, the business is expanding because we're putting all of these data points in place now, because this speaks to the law of averages of how long that it takes to get all of these things done. And I've already told him that when he performs, then he's going to end up in another position where it doesn't make sense for him to be doing those same tasks that he's doing right now. So,
right, he's just got to earn it.
Right. And a part of that is, us understanding what baseline performance looks like. And by looking at the data, we can have pinpointed conversations about any opportunities that exist and how he's structured his day based on the work assignments. And it's intentional.
That's beautiful. When I was describing to the bank manager what you do, because anywhere I'm going and I'm talking about my business, I end up talking about your business because it is definitely something that they need. And, you're my brother, you're trusted confidant. I'm like, if we're really going to help these businesses, and I'm going to help them do a tax recourse recapture plan where we're going to go back 3 years. We're going to get all these tax credits and we're going to bring it into the future and leverage it so they have 1 to 2 years absolutely tax free while the business is growing. Okay, that's really, really dope. But what is the next most important thing that we got to do? We got to look at these metrics. You have all this money now. We need to use this money in the most efficient manner possible to expand the business. And the only way we can do that is to have someone that is so intrinsically dialed into the different KPIs, metrics, and all these different little pulleys that are in there. So I start kind of explaining to her that, you're working with like conditional variables where you're like, this employee worked with this employee, they had this shift, this is how much you paid them, this is how much your business made, this is the cost of their labor. She's like, her eyes just like, oh, she's like, my goodness. Like, yes, we are. My brother goes that deep in and deeper, not just to have those numbers, but connecting it to the outward things like marketing campaigns, employee retainment, all these different factors. So it was funny because I was like, man, I wonder, do they make the same eye thing when you start going in on them?
Yeah, no, the thing about it, man, this stuff is just so a part of who I am that I'm always talking about it. Because really, when you look at politics, I see the business in it. Like when you look at education, I see the business in it. When you look at healthcare, I see the business in it. When you look at agriculture, I see the business in it. So it literally, like, everything in life is governed by business systems for the most part.
Yes.
In most of America. It's hard for me to like even have a a separate, because I'm thinking about it deeper. You know, when I'm sitting in a restaurant, I'm thinking about food cost and food waste that happens in the kitchen, and how that's impacting the owners of the restaurant, because they're probably
Yeah.
back there slaving in the kitchen right now, right? They probably haven't taken a day off work in a few weeks. And it's because they don't understand that it's those things, the food cost, the food cost and food waste, that, you know, serving sizes, having consistent utensils
Yeah.
so that each serving is consistent. So you're not throwing some more mac and cheese on there because shorty look good.
Right. Yeah. You know, it's funny. We just had a lunch and learn with Allianz Global with my team about a week and a half ago. And we always go to BJ's Brewery. And if you've never ate there, have you ever ate there before?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So pre-COVID, their menu was just like Cheesecake Factory. It was a book. It was out of control how many things were on that menu. It was amazing, but the first time I went was on a date. And they're like, what are you going to have? And I open it up like I'm going to be able to pick something. I'm like, dang, gumbo, jambalaya, pizza. We got Italian. We got American pub classics. We got salmon. Like, my goodness, it just kept going. So we're sitting there, we're doing the meeting, and we were talking about a few different things in the economy. And we were talking about how we're in this inverse bond market. And basically, like, the big short is happening right now. Nobody's talking about it. And when the bond market completely crashes, then there's going to be a lot of people that need to answer what happened, what was going on, where the thievery was happening.
How much more can you go into that?
On the inverse bond market?
Yeah, and the big short that's happening.
Okay. So, you know, essentially the big short happened, and we're talking about the economic crash of the subprime housing market, which it essentially happened at the end of the 2000s, but it hit Americans the hardest around 2011 and then again in 2013, because normally housing follows a recession by about 2 years. So what happened then was basically these non-verified loans were going out to anybody who had a pulse. So you could buy a house and you could just tell someone, yeah, I make $400K a year. Okay. They sign off the loan, they give you the house, and since they didn't do any underwriting, it was on a variable interest rate. So that's totally fine when the economy and the stock market are doing what they're supposed to do. It's okay if you have a variable rate. Until the stock market and the economy got variable. And then you saw people go from having a 5% mortgage to 10, 11, 13%. Folks can't pay that, so they're losing the house. And then sometimes there will be a renter in there, so that person lost their house. And it was basically a stacking of bad assets. Those things were grouped into something called a trough, where you can put anything inside a trough, and then that is sold again by Wall Street. So what Wall Street does to create a lot of money out of air, they will take one thing that is real. So the mortgage of this one house that is not income verified. And they know it's pretty risky. So they're like, here's what we can do. Let's get a whole bunch of them, and then let's put them in a group, and then let's say that's diversification, and then let's sell this thing as an A-class asset. And then with A-class assets, they would peel off some of the bad parts, regroup it with more of these bad things, and then they became Bs and Cs all the way down to what they actually are. And when things went backwards, we're looking at a hyper-leveraged system where we've taken really, really poorly performing assets that are high risk, and we mixed a whole bunch of them with each other. That doesn't diversify anything, guys. It just means it's a bunch of bad bets. You know, it's a poor example, but it's like If it's a bunch of threes walking around and we get 50 threes and put them in a crowd, they don't turn into dimes. That is a crowd that I'm probably running from. Okay, because if it's 50 threes there, I don't need to be there. I need to be elsewhere. So essentially, that's what the Big Short was. So once things started going backwards, it was so much negative leverage. It was so many tens of billions of dollars stacked up on top of each other that it had to topple. And that's why so much money was lost. And that's why the American government had to do the bank bailout, because all of these banks were participating in these sorts of assets. Now, what we have going on right now, there are some similarities where they're doing the exact same thing and they just call it a different name. So they're not calling it a trough, they're calling it a collective or a collection, or they're just calling it, some sort of derived asset, but it's the exact same thing. And right now, for the last, I want to say, off the top of my head, 61 months, we've seen bonds go backwards, which means a bond is an IOU. It's basically saying, you know what, I'm going to go to the U.S. government, or I'm going to go to my county, to my municipality, and they need money to do stuff. And I think they're good for it. So I'm going to give them $10,000 of my own money. And because I'm doing that, they're going to give me an interest rate. If it's where I live in my own municipality, all that money is tax-free to me. That's a whole different conversation. But that's what a bond is. It's an IOU in one shape, form, or fashion. It is debt. And since we see this going backwards, that means less debt is being created for the United States. That sounds like it would be a good thing. We're not talking about national debt here. We're talking about citizens. We're talking about China. We're talking about Sweden putting their money somewhere safe to grow interest as debt to the U.S. because you believe the U.S. can pay it back. Since less debt is getting created, that means there's less confidence in us paying it back. And our nation's rating has gone down for the first time in, I believe, 70 years. That Moody's moved it down out of A. So essentially, we're sitting on a whole bunch of ticking time bombs, brother. We have another mortgage crisis. We have commercial real estate. We have the way debt cycles happening right now that could cripple us. We have a whole bunch of fabrication and falsehoods happening in the stock market, where there are companies that are in the green right now and their company hasn't turned a profit in 5 years. How does that make sense? It doesn't. So the stock market is faker than it's ever been. We've had more banks go down in a short period of time than during the Big Short in the last few years. The government's just been very quiet about it, and the media sources have been very quiet about it. So we have about 11 different events all stacked on top of each other, not including the tech AI bubble as well. So we have all these things lined up at once. And we have a very interesting executive branch right now that just, they go on lots of vacations and they just come back angrier. So we are on top of a powder keg that's on top of a mortar that is that is on top of a warhead.
And on top of that, there isn't like a country out there that's not looking at us with an extreme side eye, because the supply chain and how that works globally. We've spoken about this before, but when the global economic ties kicked in and manufacturing left America in large quantities and went overseas, that happened around the world. So China, India, like it's certain countries that have been powerhouses of production that have pretty much supplied the rest of the world through globalization.
We gave the game away by trying to be cheap. I was talking to a tech guy when we were at InvestFest, and we were talking about this right now. And he was saying, if we never, and by we, it's like I own a bunch of shares of Apple. If Apple never sent manufacturing over to China just to make a little bit more margin on phone, they never would have gave them the technology to create Huawei, who is killing them around the world. And it also wouldn't have incentivized Samsung to continue to be better than it is. And then also it created OnePlus, who was my phone of choice for many years. So they literally created these organizations that have destroyed them. They might have even led to NVIDIA, who is wiping the floor with them because they are not innovative. People get so angry when I say it. So I'm like, listen to Rashad say it. Listen to Ian say it. Listen to Troy say it, because they love Apple and they have, millions of dollars in shares, I would guess, based on the options I've seen them buy over the last 5 years. I'm sure that they have 7 figures of Apple. And when they're saying, look, unless Apple comes out with something incredible in the next 5 months, they're going to let go of their shares. They have that conversation, and I see 2 days later, Warren Buffett sells 100% of his Apple stock. Woo! What do the Wayne brothers always say? Message! There's a message. But, what can we learn from this? They stopped innovating. People, under Steve Jobs, one of the most innovative companies to ever exist in American history. To create the smartphone, to create iTunes, to create the iPad, the iPod, revolutionary. But then they couldn't get the software to work right, so they had to go to Google. And this wouldn't work right, had to get that from Android. Well, we never learned how to make screens, got to get those from Samsung. What about the glass for our cameras? Got to get that from Samsung. What about these devices? What about these drivers? We'll just buy this company. And it's been so interesting to watch. I've always looked at Apple. People look at them as like a computer company. I looked at them as the new JP Morgan. And I mean that in the classical sense, not the current bank. But when I think of JP Morgan and his father and the way they built their wealth, so they had money when they came over from Europe. And he's like, son, of course we can compete with these people, but why would we do that? So they would buy out rival companies and then shut them down. It's called Morganization. Because they did it so often, they became the definition. That's crazy. It's illegal to do that now, to just go out and create a monopoly. But we haven't seen antitrust really come after Google and Apple, because they've been holding up our economy. So I think that's why
they were the former. I can't remember what her position, but it was one lady that she was coming after everybody. Like she went after Apple. So I think this administration removed her. But during the Biden administration, no, she had them on their heels on the antitrust stuff. Google included.
Right. Unfortunately, I guess I should have stated it better. I know who you're talking about. That gal, the African American lady that Trump just let go from the SEC. Is that who you're referring to?
No. So she's a governor on the I think you're talking about she's a governor on the
for the board for the Fed. You're right. I crossed those wires.
Yeah.
The gal you're talking about, you're right. She set in motion for there to be antitrust, but there was no backing and there was no might behind it. So it was almost just like, this is all for show. It's like, we want to remind you shouldn't be doing this and that we could make life very difficult for you, but we're not right now, as long as you keep producing. Well, now they're going, Well, Google's on the up, Apple's on the down, Tesla's on the down, and it shows you how cruel commerce can be. Where it's like, friends and friends in business seem to be two different things at that level.
It was Lena Khan.
Lena Khan. Yep.
Lena Khan. That's who it was. She was putting boot to ass for these larger corporations, but yeah, that they went on ahead and shut her down.
And it's so unfortunate because I truly believe, small businesses employ more people in America than large businesses. And every time I say that, people are like, wow, really? Yes, that's why small businesses are the heartbeat of America. Because even though we have these large corporations, when we start getting into that merger and acquisition world, that private equity world, and they're combining these companies, they start doing it in a way where they can shed as many jobs as possible to make it as lean as possible so they can resell it again. And when they resell it to the BlackRocks of the world, that's where they're getting the hundreds of millions and the billions of dollars on the buyout. And that company has lost its soul. It's lost its purpose to be the best of the best. Now it functions as a hedge fund. So we got to keep the small businesses alive. Go ahead, brother.
Unfortunately, though, and especially with the advent of AI, it almost becomes apocalyptic for these small businesses when the corporations are already, we've been watching it happen. And, you go into any store and they got the self-checkout kiosks and it's one person that's servicing all of these transactions that are happening. So all of that stuff has been happening. And then again, all of the AI being rolled into it. So many small business owners are just over their head with trying to survive that they can't even fathom the idea of investing time into learning about AI. So when you got these corporations that are continuing to churn out and do the things that they do, it becomes a certain point where these small businesses can't even compete because it's two different games being played. With every single one of my clients, we talking about it to one degree or another of how AI is going to improve things in their business. I was just talking to my client about Perplexity. These things are critical tools and resources that a lot of folks that are business operators are not leveraging, and it's only so long that they can keep up with the tidal waves that are continuing to come in the form of how the overall economy is performing.
I couldn't agree more. It makes me think about that quote. I'm going to paraphrase, but it's basically that the future belongs to the literate. The illiterate are those who refuse to unlearn and relearn. So we have to constantly take account of ourselves. One thing I love to say to clients is that the future is not only what we choose, but your future is going to be what we refuse to destroy, because you're going to bring it along with you. So we got to take account for everything. Should this be here? Yes or no, without emotion. So the AI piece is so interesting because I very much so grew up watching the Terminator. And when I learned, I want to say I was maybe in 7th grade, and I learned there really was a Skynet and that they really were a computer technology company. It's like, that's eerie. Anybody else worried about that, stressed about that? No, just me? And then just seeing what AI can do, but also understanding, I've been buying courses, I've been talking to all kinds of different people. I've been using it to enhance my business. Understanding its limitations as well lets me know that it can be oversold. People don't understand that. At this point in time, AI cannot think. It is a human language model. It does not think. What it does is decipher language that has been given or patterns of language that has been programmed into it. So if you want to get rid of Rosetta Stone and you want to use ChatGPT to practice your Spanish, it will be 1,000,000 times better. 1,000,000 times better. Now, if you want to let a machine make all your decisions for you, and that machine is based on language, a language model, and it happens to be the language that makes the least sense, because English, is 5 kids in a trench coat pretending to be one language. It's like, is it Germanic? Is it Spanish? Is it Latin? Is it French? What is it? It's a whole bunch of stuff just all thrown together. I would say, you're not going to be successful. Now, with the political piece, we talked at length about, I guess, bonds today. Was there a burning political piece that you wanted to talk with the classmates about today?
By a 6-3 majority, the Supreme Court permitted federal agents to factor in perceived race or ethnicity, spoken language such as Spanish, accents, employment type, manual labor, day labor, agriculture, and construction, and presence in specific locations, likely day labor sites, to justify stops for immigration enforcement. So the beginning of that was by a 6-3 majority. One piece that we have to get more disciplined about is understanding how civics works. There are 3 co-equal branches of government that are intended to provide checks and balances on power.
Yes.
During President Obama's administration, he nominated Merrick Garland to the Supreme Court. Merrick Garland, the former Biden's Attorney General, nominated him to the Supreme Court. Mitch McConnell, a Republican senator, said that since President Obama was within a year of his administration ending, that they wouldn't even vote to confirm him. Then, when the current president was in his last administration and Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed.
That's the way. Mm-hmm. R.I.P. God bless the dead.
Correct. Amy Coney Barrett, literally, like, as he was getting ready to exit out of his presidential term, they went on ahead and pushed her through to the Supreme Court. So the 6-3 majority to begin with is already, again, when we are not intentionally disciplined about understanding how civics works and our responsibility as citizens to hold the elected officials accountable for the things that we want to see in our societies. This happens. This 6-3 majority said that federal agents can now target folks if they speak Spanish or if they look like they're... When we start talking about a slippery slope, where does this lead to?
This form of classism, if you've read any book or seen a movie, it ends in a crazy dictatorship, and then you fast forward 20 years from there and it's Mad Max. This is literally the road where we are a nation of different people, different backgrounds, different life experiences, and that has always been our strength. Without the Navajo, we could not have won World War II, because that's the code that couldn't be broken, because it's a language that was so different that they couldn't decipher it. That is our strength in connecting to others and our similarities and working hard and letting people pursue their dreams. And that is how you have a healthy economy. And when we have a healthy economy, we have less crime. When we have less crime, we need less policing. We have less police officers stressed out, losing their jobs. They're able to help their families. They're better serving their communities, and everyone is better off for it. There are no advantages to targeting people because of the language they speak, the color of their skin, or the job that they work. You know, you and I were talking about it a couple weeks ago, Nebraska, in certain towns where they got all of the migrant workers out and they plugged in non-Hispanic workers that didn't have the skills or the work ethic, and now it looks like their city is going bankrupt. We saw retaliatory tariffs from China saying, oh, we're not going to buy soybeans from these farmers anymore. You want to tariff us on this? Okay, cool. All that stuff's going to rot. And now we see those cities going into bankruptcy and realizing that they voted themselves into dissent. I can't agree with you more. We have to understand how civics work. But more so, I think this ties back to personal accountability. I can understand how your average person can either A, vote all willy-nilly and be a one-issue voter. They only care about this one thing, nothing else. Oh, this candidate has that? Okay, I'm voting for him. But your average person doesn't hold themselves accountable to too much. So it's tough to expect them to hold these folks in office who serve us accountable as well. So what does that mean for the rest of us? And that's not a rhetorical question. What do you think that means for the rest of us who are conscious of what's going on?
I tell you what it means for me is I already see America is a sinking ship. So I'm going to do all that I can do to have the impact on the communities that I get set up in, because from the federal level, we can't really expect any salvation. But from the community level, we got a fighting chance. So
I love that.
That's kind of where I'm at with it. But it also goes back to looking at the world more broadly to say, you know, my eggs ain't gonna all be in America's basket.
Mm-hmm.
The devil is a lie. No, it's business going on everywhere.
It is.
And I see it.
And the beautiful thing that I don't think most folks know is that they want you to invest in their country. They want you to buy real estate in their country. They want you to bring new business ideas into their country. They're welcoming you with open arms, because we're just at a point where, you know, America, we've been innovative for sure. Tons of hardworking, caring people. We could never discount that, and the hard work of generations of people, whether they were enslaved or not. The synthesis of just hundreds of years of hard work made us what we are. And we got to the point where we got to back the global system. So the petrodollar, that is the dollar that backs all the oil money. It's the US dollar. And then, you know, we back most currencies at this point in time. But as things are shifting and we can start to see things add up where it's like, oh, we as Americans, instead of reinvesting in infrastructure to make sure all of our citizens have clean drinking water, you know, that money got used in a crazy manner, and it made someone that was already wealthy hyper wealthy. And then, you know, we decide that community colleges aren't going to be free anymore, when that was the whole point of community college. That kind of makes me think about, you know, we have so many great thinkers and scientists that emerged from Germany. And I remember someone questioning I believe she was a dean of a school. It's like, why do you guys have so many physicists that are just world renowned in Germany? And she's like, well, one thing that we're really big on is educating everybody, not just the wealthy. It's just a mic drop. I couldn't agree with you more. We have a fighting chance, but it's going to take community, and it's going to take working with people that you don't always agree with, you don't always like, you don't pray the same, you're not in the same industry, you don't listen to the same music, you might not even eat the same food. But at our core, we are the same people, and we are looking to do what's best for our community in reality, not in a crazy, delusional, we're just going to do wacky things and burn money and have empty, broken promises. Like, hey, as a community, how can we come together and grow our own food so that we don't have to eat GMOs if we don't want to?
It's been so much intentional sabotage that's been inflicted upon society in general. I mean, beginning with, race being a construct to everything that spiraled from that, and the divestment in education and the breakdown of the family unit. It's just all of these pieces that inform who we are as a people now. And there's so much nuance to all of it that it just makes the work long and enduring, but it is the necessary work. And again, is why I prioritize my energy at the community level, because I don't see how we can do the things that we need to do as a nation if the temperature continues to heat up and we're not seeing each other as neighbors and, fellow countrymen.
Right.
So,
that's real patriotism.
right.
Not calling somebody out of their name, not calling somebody a lefty this, a righty that.
Not targeting them because they speak Spanish.
Yes. Not targeting them because they're Asian. You remember
Right.
what was going on
Right.
during COVID?
Right.
People had to
Right.
change their Facebook profile. No Asian hate.
Right.
In 2020, out of control. Absurd. It just goes to show that we have so much work to do if we're really going to unite. These are all just, it feels like they're just little games that were put into to just keep us distracted from our buying power and the strength of our collective focus. Right now, if Black and brown people just decided, you know what? We're all going to buy together. We're going to buy in our communities. We're going to fund each other with loans and whatnot. We're going to make sure we're all interlinked. And we are going to make sure that the government at all levels, from the municipal level of where we live all the way up to federal, recognizes our buying power and treats us as they should. All of this stuff would be over in a couple weeks. It would be so simple to do, but it's also so simple not to do. When we can get on YouTube and talk about, oh man, can he rap the N-word or Jamaican, but he's from Mecca? What are we talking about, people? What are we talking about?
Bro, like we just had a whole news cycle circling around Young Thug snitching. And it's like, bro, like all of that street shit is, I get it, but we all get it now, right? Like they got us. They got us to focus on some things that were counterproductive to the advancement of our communities. They got us. Okay, cool. Now let's evolve, right? Like let's
Right. It's a time and place for things, folks.
right.
Last week we talked about having a Muse versus Amusement, and you got to pick your time. When are we going to become the best versions of ourselves? When are we going to create our best community? When are we relaxing from that work? And then we're looking at the silly stuff. Because then it doesn't matter if you've already done the work. But I think people get caught up in this loop where they're at work wishing they were with their family. So some people are, half-assing it. And then they come home with their family and they're thinking about work. Like, man, I got to get all this stuff done. So we're in a constant loop of incompleteness versus locking in and focusing. And I got to think it's probably $1 trillion business on keeping us out of focus. I mean, have you ever seen TikTok before? I don't have one.
Yeah,
I'm not
on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok. I have a business account on there, but nah, I'm not. I don't know how it works. I'm an old man when it comes to that. I don't know nothing about it.
We're both the old heads. I had one for one day 3 years ago. I was like, okay, I'm gonna get one. Maybe I'll make a business account. I'm not saying that I still won't make a business account. There's a place where there's a lot of value from it, where there is news that is not tethered to the U.S. government across that. And that's important. Right. We talk about representation all the time. However, my very little understanding of human psychology and stimuli, I know when there's a bunch of bright things moving and flashing, that's changing the wiring of your brain and how it processes. And you're getting all these dopamine highs, and it's just going more and more and more and more. And I can't tell you how many people I know that are between 35 and 55 that are like, oh, I planned on coming to your event, but I started scrolling on TikTok and I looked up, it was 4 hours later. And I'm just like, golly, it must have took so much time and so many millions to dial in the science of distraction there. And to me, it is like the perfect weapon, the American version of TikTok. The Chinese, Singaporean version is very different. Yeah. Their version is all educational. It's not super short form. They're learning. Yep. The version we have, super short form, bright colors all over the place. So it's speeding you up and slowing you down at the same time. So you're just in this vegetated state. My goodness. Well, the old heads have spoken. I'm sure somebody's in the comments already. You don't even know about my TikTok. We're talking deep, and we wake people up on TikTok. Okay, look, if you're using it as a tool to build your business, to help your family, to help your income, or you're just genuinely providing value, go get it. We're just two old heads talking.
It will be a part of the overall strategy as far as for creating brand awareness, but I'm not going to be, it'll be people that's doing that on the behalf of the company, not me, because I just don't. It's not my thing. None of it is, really. Like, I think over the last, since InvestFest, it's been like the most active that I've been on social media, on Facebook. And Facebook, it's not really my thing. But with the strategy that I'm putting together with my VA, though, that's getting ready to, my business presence on social media is getting ready to increase significantly. But me, not my thing.
Nah, you're too busy. What's that called again? Doing actual business. Like, y'all are gonna get tired of us saying this, but I could show my calendar any day of the week.
Right.
And they're gonna be like, "You did that many meetings?" Yes, I did. My phone's dinging right now. That's clients. I just had to put it on silent.
Yo, every time that I sit down with someone new and they see the meticulous nature of how we do the things that we do, from collecting the data to organizing the data to analyzing the data to strategizing from the data, and how it like just cyclically flows into a process design. That stuff don't happen with me sitting on TikTok, bro, or face, none of that. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not how that works, man.
It's so funny. I'm excited for us to continue to have a greater reach and brand awareness. That's the only reason why I want to see the follower numbers go up. We're both the same type of people, folks. If we get to a position, not if, let me go back. When we get to a position where there's just so much abundance, you're going to need a satellite phone to reach me. I'm not posting on social media. You know, I'm going to still be making my moves, helping people, but you can sign up for the event and you'll see me there. I'm not going to I'm not going to be like, yeah, out here with these camels. You know how sheiks get, chic life. No, sir.
Facts. No, that is a fact. I understand that a lot of people probably see my confidence as arrogance, but for me, it's just reality. It's gonna come a point. It's gonna come a point where I don't have time to engage with everybody. And as my time becomes more and more limited, it's a lot of folks that, you know, the access, they may feel that they're entitled to it because I have been accessible. But once I'm not accessible, understand that was by design. When you and I met, and the level of excitement that I had just to recognize that you truly know what the fuck you talking about, to a deep, you know, you can educate a fifth grader on wealth management from various angles. That depth of knowledge, it befuddles me how when people are around those types of folks that they don't want to be around those types of folks and make it intentional to be around those types of folks. Because it's a rarity. A lot of people are cogs in the wheel, just going along to get along. So those ones that you can see are actually doing things, like why you would not have a relationship with those people blows my mind. But I know.
Well, I don't think I think this is the perfect setup for what I was thinking as we were talking. It takes a lot of responsibility to be around people like you and I, because we're not going to listen to the same problem 2 times. We just aren't. Yeah. Like in the time that I've known you, the hundreds of conversations we've had, have you ever heard me complain?
And ditto.
No. Have I ever heard you complain?
Yeah.
Not one time about anything, ever. Now, I've asked questions. I've asked you for guidance. I've asked you.
And ditto. Yeah.
Yeah. But we don't complain. Yeah. That takes out a whole lot of people right there.
That's true.
Because we all have problems. We all have, like, they try to act like, you know, we're working these days, and even when you're working perfectly in your niche on your stuff, it's still a long day because we still got to live life outside of it. You got to do the things you got to do for your daughter. I got to do for my family. And life is life. But it's like, no complaining. That's rule number 1. I don't want to hear about nothing 2 times. The only exception is if you had a problem, we're like, try this. And you're like, I tried this, it didn't work. Cool. Let's figure out another solution. But if you're going to come back with the same funky problem and you didn't try the solution, I know you just want attention, because it's only a mistake one time. It's a choice every time after that. Yeah. And I count your choices. So it's kind of like what we said in episode 1. There's so many people that don't even want to be successful. They just want to look successful.
Right.
I saw Forbes did a poll not too long ago, and it was crazy. It was like 67% of people would rather be famous than wealthy. Couldn't be me.
Right.
One of the reasons I chose this niche is so that I could build real wealth and affluence, and it would be a microscope of people in the world who had an idea of what I got. And that part of that is pushing old cars, I'm never posting pictures of crazy watches or anything like that. Because why would I make myself a victim? But that's a whole nother conversation. That's why I chose this. You know what
Right.
I mean? I want to help people in a real way. I want to live an incredible life, but I want to live a normal life. I do not need the fame. So I know that we're at 7:08 right now. We hit our political piece. We talked about bonds for a while. That was Wu-Tang Financial, invest in some nuclear bombs. We're going to war. I guess that was the asset of the day.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea we were going to take that lane, but it's kind of funny. He's a funny dude. It's like, this is what you get when you're dealing with professionals. He's just like, oh, can you go deeper on that? Okay. Oh, I can't wait to set you up, man. Get you in this next episode and let you go off.
I mean, but we always do that anyway, man, because like I mentioned earlier, when you start talking about the idea of when you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in InvestFest and I was taught, I didn't have any planned script. Like I know Ian and Rashad would be speaking about, be prepared, have your pitch and all of that. I do this so religiously that like it's not a pitch. Like it really is who I am. Like it's how my mind works, it's how my spirit moves. Like this is me. It's just gonna come out. And it's the same thing with you. That's what really like excites me about all of this that we're doing, because this is like pretty much like we end every episode. It's refreshing to be able to go back and forth and constructive dialogue about shit that matters, because you be surrounded by folks that live by let's talk about the same problems over and over. And it's like, bro, if you're not doing nothing to change the situation, then save it, because I don't want to hear that shit. Like, bluntly.
1,000,000%. And it's more so, I know it sounds cool, but like, one, you got to respect yourself and respect your energy. But the other thing is, we believe in people. That's why you and I both get pissed off about that. I'm like, man, this brother over here talking to me about some nonsense. You talking to me about the difference between the taste of Hennessy now versus 4 years ago, and you got a conspiracy on it and everything. I'm like, that's heavy. Sounds like you put about a good 70, 80 hours of research into this. You're like, oh, more than that, probably a couple 100 hours. I've been really in on this thing. And I'm like, well, are you putting this information out for others so you can help them add value? And then from that, you could make a new income stream. Oh, I would never make money off the people. That's not it. I'm doing this you're doing this as a distraction. And you've let somebody talk you out of your own greatness, because that same energy could have been put towards something way more productive that lights your soul up more than talking to random people about Hennessy, which I do not drink. I'm one of those brothers, I don't drink Henny and I don't eat chitlins. Okay. I'm not doing it. We got better stuff out now. I'm not doing it.
And for me, like, I drink wine and I don't eat meat. Pause. You know what I'm saying? Like we just different kinds of mentalities, man, in comparison to what's in abundance in the general public, man. And that's what helps, but the how we connect. So that's good shit.
Brother. And that's how we're going to continue to find our tribe and continue to build all these classmates up. So I would think the call to action from my side would be to look at your current accounts and see how much bond exposure you have right now. If you have a bunch of bond exposure, might be time to change that up. Wink, wink. By the way, this is just educational information. I am not your financial advisor or your tax strategist. He's not your business coach or consultant until you sign an LOI. So please do your own research or contact another professional and still research thoroughly.